Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you guys my brush collection and my favorite brushes that I use for professional application as well as on a daily basis for personal use. So before we go ahead and get started with the types of brushes I like to use for different parts of the face, I want to go ahead and introduce you to some of my favorite brands and why I like using their brushes. The brand that you're going to see the most throughout this video is Bdellium brushes. This is more of a professional brand that I started using when I first started with makeup, and I've continued using to this point. I really like using them. Some of their brushes look like this. The ones that I particularly use the most are the Studio Collection. They have the yellow handle, and then I also have some of their bamboo brushes, which are in this pink handle. All of their brushes run for anywhere between $20 to $8 a brush. I think it's extremely affordable for the quality of these brushes, and they all have professional handles. They're very comfortable to use. Their brushes have an antibacterial technology, which I think is amazing, especially if you don't have a lot of time to deep clean your brushes all the time and you're constantly just spot cleaning from client to client. I think the antibacterial technology helps a lot when you're in that kind of situation. The second brand that I really like using, and you'll see a lot in my collection, is Real Techniques. This is the synthetic brush line created by Sam and Nick, the Pixie sisters from the UK. I absolutely love them. I think they're amazing makeup artists. They have so many things you can learn from, and I think that they came out with an amazing brush line. It's also very affordable. Their brushes range anywhere from $10 to $6 a brush. They also have a lot of sets of 5 to 3 brushes for under $20, which I think is a great deal. I find that their brushes are extremely soft, feels very nice on the skin, and I especially love using their brushes for cream products. The third brand that I really love and enjoy using is Morphe brushes. I recently got introduced to them maybe about 6 months ago. They reached out to me and wanted to send me a couple different types of their brushes for me to try out, and I absolutely love them. The two lines that I really like from them are the Gunmetal collection and the Flawless collection. Their brushes are also very affordable, anywhere from about $16 to about $5 a brush depending on the collection. And a couple other brands that I like to use are MAC. I have some Luxie Lush brushes, as well as a couple Sigma brushes. But I will say MAC brushes are very expensive. A lot of their brushes range anywhere from $55 to $15 a brush. And I also find that MAC brushes tend to shed a lot. Just from my experience, that's what I found with my brushes, whereas the other brands that I mentioned, the Bdellium tools, Morphe brushes, Real Techniques, they rarely shed. Especially for the price, I don't recommend them, but they do have several brushes that I completely love and think they are worth the price. So like I said, I have a couple Luxie Lush brushes. They range anywhere from $20 to $10. They're also cruelty free. I also have just a couple Sigma brushes. When I first started getting into makeup, this is like early high school, when I didn't have a lot of money, the only affordable brush line at the time that I knew about was Sigma. I'm not very familiar with a lot of their new lines or their new brushes, but I do have a couple from their older collections that I still use to this day and that I love, so I'll mention a couple of those as well. Alright, so now that you have a quick little idea of the brands that I like to use, I will go ahead and share with you some of my favorite brushes for different applications and for different parts of the face. Let's go ahead and start with foundation. Some of my favorite brushes for foundation are these three. This pink one is the Luxie Lush 532 brush. This gray one is the Morphe Gunmetal G3, and I like using the Morphe G17 for concealer under the eyes sometimes. The reason why I like these for foundation is they're all synthetic. There's a lot of synthetic brushes that you can find, but the main reason I like these are because of the shape. I think they're super soft and very comfortable to apply foundation. They make it very easy, and they don't create brush strokes or lines or unevenness. It creates a very flawless finish. Also for foundation, I like to use the Beauty Blender sometimes, but for my clients, I will almost always use them for concealer, and will use them for concealer on myself most of the time as well. So these are a huge plus. These are my favorite, and I find that the Beauty Blender one works the best. So I don't do this for myself, but on my clients, when I'm applying moisturizer or any kind of lotion onto their skin, I like using brushes like this, some kind of flat synthetic brush. These are both Bdellium Tools brushes. This one is the 948 brush, and this is the 365 brush. Moving on to kind of powder products, I've grouped them into powders, compacts, and blushes and contours. And some of them I use for all three of those purposes, and some of them I use for just one or two of those products. A lot of people like to use a big fluffy brush like this one for powders. This is the Bdellium Tools 980 brush. I like this for myself sometimes. I rarely use powders because I have very dry skin, but this is really good if you use powders daily and you just want something quick that you want to brush over. But I tend not to use this on my clients because I like to be really precise with my application, whether it be blush, bronzer, or any kind of face powder. So I don't use this one a lot, but I know it's a really good powder brush for anybody that uses a lot of powders on themselves. Moving on to bronzers, this is a really great all-over bronzer brush. This is the Bdellium Tools 990 brush. Sometimes I will do bronzers in two steps, so I'll do like an all-over bronzer color, and then I'll get a smaller brush to concentrate or deepen up the bronzer. So this is really good if you just want like a quick wash of color. I really like the shape. You'll also notice that all the brushes that I use for powder products are going to be natural hair bristles. I find that they work best for powder products, so that's why. Another brush that I like to use for bronzer is this one. This is the 974 Bdellium brush. Same thing, this puts on really nice all over color, and you can also concentrate it with this brush. It's a really great tapered shape. If I want to concentrate bronzer even more, if I want to really define bronzer, I really like using the Bdellium Tools 942 brush, or I also have the Morphe M500 and the Morphe M509 brushes. These are really beautiful blending brushes. The bristles are not super concentrated, so it allows for all over blending without concentrating the color too much, and this one is a little bit more tapered, so you can help concentrate your bronzer with a brush like this one. As far as blushes, the same Morphe brush that I mentioned for bronzers, the M509, I really like using this one for blush as well. And some of my other favorites are, this is the MAC 129. I use this one a lot. I use this for powders under the eyes, anywhere else that I want to brush off powder, as well as brush. I'll use this for highlight. So this is one of my favorite MAC brushes. A Bdellium brush that's very similar to that MAC brush is the 964. The bristles in the Bdellium Tools is a little bit more sparse, but they still do the same job. I use them both a lot, and they are one of my favorite blush brushes. And if I'm using a cream blush, that's where my Real Techniques brushes come in for all my cream products, because I find that brushes that have synthetic bristles, they don't hold on and soak up cream products. Natural hairs have follicles in each hair if you were to zoom very closely into each bristle, and a lot of cream and different kinds of products like to gunk up in there. Whenever I'm using a cream blush or any kind of cream bronzer, I really like using this Real Techniques brush. I think this is the multitask brush. Next, I'm going to talk about highlight. If you guys have seen some of my other videos, you know that highlighting is one of my favorite things. I think it adds a really beautiful glow that just enhances everybody's look. These are a couple different brushes that I like to use for highlighting purposes. If it's a cream highlight, like I said, I go for my Real Techniques brush. This is the Real Techniques contour brush. Two Bdellium brushes that I think are perfect for applying highlight. Depending on what's more comfortable for you, I just switch on and off. This one is the Bdellium Tools 960 brush, and the one with the black bristles is the Bdellium Tools 945 brush. These two are both really great. A new brush that I've been trying out lately, this is the Real Techniques Bold Metals brush. I love the tapered shape. This also is a synthetic brush, but it's a very fine grade synthetic bristle, which almost acts like a natural hair brush. This works perfectly, goes right under the eye beautifully, any other areas that you highlight, and it has one of the prettiest handles. It just makes me happy, so I like using that. This brush also works really great. It's very fluffy, so it blends really nicely, but it's not big, so it can concentrate color easily. This is the Morphe M510 brush. Next, we're gonna move on to eyes and talk about some of my favorite eye brushes. Before I start my eyes, sometimes I like to go ahead and just put a base on, whether it's a base powder or a base primer or anything like that. I like using brushes that are sort of large, like these, that can put on product efficiently, fast. When I'm working with cream products, if it's like a paint pot or a primer, I like using these two Real Techniques brushes. This one here is the Deluxe Crease Brush, and this one here is the Domed Shadow Brush. Brushing on all over powder color, whether it's a transition shade or if you just want to do a really quick blend, these three are my favorite. This one is a MAC 227. As you can tell, it's a very large paddle brush. It can concentrate color but blend it and put it on very quickly. That's why I like it. Very similar but a little bit different shape. This is the Morphe M12 brush, and this one is more of a blending brush, but because it is much bigger than most of my blending brushes, I like using it for all over color as well, and this is the M11 Morphe brush. These next brushes are great for packing on shadows in different colors. Like I said, if I'm working with a cream product, I always go for my Real Techniques. This is a shading brush. It also works really great under eye, and it's small enough but not too small for blending as well. For the upper lid or sometimes blending out the lower lash line, these three are my favorite. This one here is the MAC 215. This one is one of my Sigma ones. I don't even have the name for it. That's how long I've had it. It's one of my favorites. And a very similar one that I like using by Bdellium Tools. This is the 776 brush. These two have that same shape, but they're very small, so it's great for adding and concentrating color under the eyes or doing any kind of detail work. This is the Morphe M508 brush, and my all-time favorite, the Bdellium Tools 755 brush. Alright, so if you're like me and you take your blending very seriously, these are some of my favorite blending brushes. This is the softest brush that I own in my collection. It's so soft. It's really great for blending out transition colors, applying transition colors, blending out harsh lines. Very similar one, but in a natural bristle form. This is the Bdellium Tools 785 brush. A couple other brushes that I like to use for blending. These are both Morphe. This is the M513 and the M502 brush. They're very similar, but also very different at the same time. This one is a little bit more dense, the black one, and this one is a little bit more fluffy. The closer I get into my crease, I will use brushes like this, and the further out into my lid, I use more fluffier blushes like that. And then when it gets to concentrating colors, but also blending them at the same time, I like using smaller blending brushes like these. You don't need to get every single brush that I have because this is my profession and I do this for a living. I do have a lot and very different variations of each kind of brush. These are just to show you the different ones that are available and the ones that I like to use. You can kind of see a trend. All my blending brushes, even though they all do something a little bit slightly different, they're all very similar in shape. So that's mainly what I want you to pay attention to. If you're a beginner and you're not going to be doing all of the different types of precise work that I usually do on a daily basis, you can get a brush that's very similar in shape to these and it will do a great job. For concentrating blending, these two are my favorite. I've always go to these. If I pick two blending brushes to be my favorite, it's the MAC 213 and the Bdellium Tools 776. They're very similar, but also very different. The Bdellium Tools is more dense, so I like using it to pack on color and blend, and this one tends to be a little bit more fluffier. Sometimes I like to blend shadow under eye, and this works perfect. It's tapered, and it's just small enough to not smear your under eye makeup too low. This is the M506 brush. For brows and eyeliners, these are my favorite. Of course, the spoolie is a must-have for blending out any kind of brow product, brushing up the brow hairs, anything like that. This is my all-time favorite. This is the only one I use. This is the Bdellium Tools 733 brush. For applying color on my brows, I like using angled brushes like these. When applying a powder brush product, I mainly use this for my clients since I only use gel products on my own eyes, but this is the 763 brush. It's a angled brush, but it's a little bit fluffier and more dense and thicker. For eyeliners, any kind of gel product, whether it's for the eyes or for the brows, these are amazing. This is the MAC 203 and Bdellium Tools 762. For myself, when I'm applying eyeliner, I work more efficiently when I am working with a tapered liner brush like this and not an angled one. For some reason, I prefer to use an angled one on my clients because it's more comfortable for me. My favorite one is the Bdellium Tools 708 brush. And then this one is a Makeup Forever eyeliner brush. All right, only a few more to go. When I am cleaning up anything, defining anything with concealer, these are the brushes I like to use. So for my brows, to clean up under, to define, to clean up my lip line, anything like that, these are my go-to brushes. This one I use the most. This is the Bdellium Tools 936 brush. It's a concealer brush. And then this one's also great because it's straight. Anywhere where you want to do straight, very defined lines, this is the Bdellium Tools 714 brush. And the last two are kind of random ones. This is a Studio Gear brush that I got many, many years ago when I first started, and it's still in my collection because I absolutely love it. It's a very dense, domed pencil brush, and this is a really great brush for applying color in the inner eye. And when I'm applying glitters or anything like that, I use the Bdellium Tools 731 brush. This is actually a mascara brush. So if you're working on a client that doesn't want to wear a lot of mascara, but you want to tint their eyelashes, this is a brush that you would use. But I also think it works amazing for glitter products and packing on any kind of pigment or glitter. That is pretty much the majority of the brushes that I use on a daily basis. Like I said, you don't have to have as many brushes as me. I can definitely do a full face of makeup with less than half of the brushes that I just mentioned. I just wanted to show you the different options that you have available. All the brushes that I mentioned, they're all really great quality in my opinion. None of them have broken down over time after washing and deep cleaning many, many times. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions on any of the brushes I mentioned, please leave that in the comments, or you can leave them on my Instagram or Facebook. You can find me under @MARLA NYAMDORJ. And if you guys are interested in seeing how I clean my brushes or maintain them, just let me know and I can definitely make a video on that as well. But other than that, I will see you guys next time. Bye.